My name is Margaret Hale. I'm 48 years old, and I've spent nearly 3 decades building a career in the United States Navy. I didn't inherit my position. I didn't marry into influence. I earned every step, every stripe, every ounce of authority the hard way. Long nights. Long deployments. Decisions that carried weight long after the room went quiet. And yet, none of that prepared me for the moment my own family laughed and said I'd never really served. Before I tell you what happened next, let me ask you something. Have you ever been dismissed by the people who should have been proud of you? If you have, I want you to know this story is for you. And if you've ever had to stand tall while others questioned your worth, stay with me, because what happened next changed everything. I was home on leave for the first time in 8 months, sitting at my parents' dining room table. The room smelled like pot roast and polished wood, the same way it had since I was a child. My mother moved around the kitchen with quiet purpose, as if serving dinner were some kind of ceremony. She placed the largest portion of meat in front of my younger brother, Ethan, then smiled at him like he'd already won something. My father poured wine, filling Ethan's glass nearly to the rim, then added just a shallow splash to mine. "So," my father said, leaning forward, eyes bright, "how's the training going, son?" Ethan shrugged, trying not to look too pleased with himself, but failing. "It's brutal. Bud/S isn't messing around." My mother beamed. "Of course it's hard. That's what makes it real. You're going to be a Navy SEAL. A real hero." I cut into my pot roast. It was dry, but I ate it anyway. "And you, Margaret?" my father asked, almost as an afterthought. "You still doing, what is it again? Planning? Paperwork? Operations coordination," I said evenly. "Fleet logistics and strategic planning." He nodded, but his attention had already drifted back to Ethan. "Right. Important stuff, I'm sure." My mother set her fork down. "At least Ethan's out there," she said. "In the field. Doing something that actually matters." Ethan shifted uncomfortably. "Mom. I'm just saying," she continued. "It's different. Your sister has a nice job, but you're going to be saving lives." My father raised his glass. "Yeah. Not sitting behind a desk." I didn't correct them. I could have. I could have told them about the Bronze Star I'd received for coordinating a carrier group during a classified crisis overseas. I could have mentioned the Navy Distinguished Service Medal locked away in a safe deposit box because I couldn't explain the operation without violating security protocols. I could have told them that my so-called desk job involved decisions affecting thousands of sailors and billions in assets. Instead, I took a sip of wine and said nothing. This was how it had always been. Ethan was the golden child. Athletic. Charismatic. The one who made everything look effortless. I was the quiet one. The serious one. The one who didn't quite fit the story my parents had written for our family. When I got into the Naval Academy, my mother said, "That's nice, honey." When Ethan made varsity football, they drove 6 hours to watch him sit on the bench. When I was commissioned as an ensign, they sent a congratulatory card. When Ethan got his first girlfriend, they threw a barbecue. The pattern was old. Worn smooth by repetition. "How long are you home for?" Ethan asked, trying to include me. 3 days, I said. "Then I'm back in Hawaii." "Hawaii," my father repeated, shaking his head. "Must be nice." "It's work," I replied. "Sure," he said, waving his fork toward Ethan. "But not like what he's about to do. Combat. Real danger." Ethan frowned. Margaret's job is important too. Of course it is, my mother said quickly. We're proud of both of you. It's just, well, what Ethan's doing is more visible. More direct. After dinner, I helped my mother wash the dishes while my father and brother watched a game in the living room. Their laughter drifted into the kitchen, easy and unforced. You know we love you, my mother said, handing me a plate. You understand why this means so much to us. I understand, I said. What I understood was this. My parents had decided long ago who I was and what I was worth. No rank, no medal, no years of service would change that. To them, I would always be the daughter who didn't quite measure up. That night, I lay in my childhood bedroom staring at a faint water stain on the ceiling, shaped like a bird. I'd spent years wondering what was wrong with me. Why I couldn't make them see me the way they saw Ethan. I didn't wonder anymore. I knew the truth now. Nothing was wrong with me. The problem wasn't mine to fix. The next morning at breakfast, my father mentioned Ethan's seal ceremony scheduled for a few months later. You should come, Ethan said. If you can get leave. I'll try, I replied. It would mean a lot, he said, and I knew he meant it. You could wear your uniform, my father added. Make it look official. I could, I said. What I didn't say was that I would be wearing my service dress blues. The uniform of a flag officer. One of the youngest women to hold that rank in the Navy. But they wouldn't see it. They never did. Later that morning, I logged into a secure video call with my command staff from a spare bedroom. On my screen appeared disciplined faces, waiting for direction. Good morning, Admiral Hale, my executive officer said. Good morning, I replied. Let's get started. For 90 minutes, I was exactly who I was meant to be. Decisive. Respected. Trusted. When the call ended, I closed my laptop and sat in silence, listening to my parents laugh downstairs with Ethan. 3 days later, I flew back to Hawaii. At the airport, my mother hugged me tightly. We'll see you at Ethan's ceremony, she said. I'll be there, I promised. And I meant it. Not as their overlooked daughter. Not as the quiet sister in the background. But as Margaret Hale. And whether they were ready or not, the truth was going to walk into that ceremony with me. The ceremony was held at Naval Amphibious Base Coronado on a clear September morning, the kind of day that looks calm on the surface while everything underneath is charged with expectation. Families filled the rows of folding chairs, clutching programs and phones, whispering with nervous excitement. Everyone was there for the same reason. To watch young men become Navy SEALs. To witness something they believed defined real service. I arrived alone. My service dress blues were pressed and immaculate. Gold stripes caught the sunlight on my sleeves, but no one looked twice. I wasn't the story. I wasn't supposed to be. I was just another officer in the crowd, another uniform among many. I found my parents near the front. My mother wore a navy dress and held 2 bouquets. My father stood beside her in his best suit, scanning the crowd with restless pride. Margaret, my mother said when she noticed me. She kissed my cheek, distracted. You made it. Of course, I said. We saved you a seat, my father added. The seat was at the end of the row. Off to the side. Easy to forget. This is so exciting, my mother whispered, gripping my arm. Our son. A Navy SEAL. It's a significant achievement, I said. My father barely heard me. His eyes were searching for Ethan, who was already somewhere backstage with his class. We sat behind the platform, the ocean stretched endlessly blue. I had spent most of my adult life on that water, defending it, planning for it, keeping ships moving across it. But today, none of that mattered. This, my mother said to the woman next to her, gesturing toward the formation area, this is what real service looks like. I folded my hands in my lap and kept my eyes forward. At exactly 1000 hours, the ceremony began. The SEAL candidates marched in, disciplined and stone-faced, pride and exhaustion etched into every movement. Ethan was in the third row. His posture was perfect. His gaze locked straight ahead. The base commander spoke first, praising sacrifice, resilience, brotherhood. Then he introduced the guest speaker, Lieutenant General Robert Keller, flown in to present the tridents. I knew Keller. Not well, but professionally. We'd crossed paths at joint operations briefings. He was sharp. Direct. The kind of officer who remembered details. He stepped to the podium and began speaking about the weight of the trident, the responsibility it carried, the standard it represented. His voice was steady, practiced. Then his eyes moved across the crowd. And stopped. He paused mid-sentence. At first, people thought it was nothing. A momentary pause. Then the murmurs started. He looked again. Straight at me. General Keller stepped away from the podium, leaned toward the base commander, said something quietly. Then he walked down from the platform. Directly toward me. My father leaned in. What's going on? I didn't answer. I stood. Instinct. Training. You don't stay seated when a general approaches with purpose. He stopped 3 feet away and came to attention. Admiral Hale, he said clearly. It's an honor to have you here, ma'am. The air shifted. You could feel it ripple through the crowd. Chairs scraped. Officers stood. One by one, uniforms straightened. I returned the salute. General. Behind him, the entire SEAL formation snapped to attention. Ethan's hand came up in a sharp salute, his eyes wide with disbelief. My parents didn't move. They sat frozen. General Keller nodded once, then returned to the platform. Ladies and gentlemen, he said into the microphone, we are honored today by the presence of Rear Admiral Margaret Hale. Admiral Hale commands Pacific Fleet Logistics and Strategic Operations and has served with exceptional distinction for over 25 years. Her leadership ensures that the very missions we celebrate today are possible. The applause wasn't polite. It was real. Sustained. Earned. I remained standing until the general gestured for everyone to sit. Then I sat, my posture unchanged. Beside me, my mother's mouth was open. My father stared straight ahead, his face drained of color. The ceremony continued. One by one, candidates stepped forward to receive their tridents. When Ethan's name was called, he moved with flawless precision. Pride surged through me. He had earned this. But my parents couldn't stop glancing at me, like they were trying to reconcile 2 different versions of the same person. After the ceremony, families rushed forward. My parents hesitated, torn between Ethan and me. I stayed back. This was his moment. Nice entrance, Admiral, my executive officer said quietly at my side. Unintentional, I assume. I didn't plan it, I replied. I know. That's what made it perfect. My parents approached me slowly once Ethan stepped away. You're an admiral? My father finally asked, his voice breaking. Yes. Why didn't you tell us? My mother whispered. I did, I said calmly. You didn't ask. Ethan looked between us. I told you she was high-ranking. My father shook his head. We thought, logistics. I command logistics for the entire Pacific Fleet, I said. That's a flag billet. Silence. We're proud of you, my mother said quickly. I know, I replied. But pride without attention doesn't mean much. Ethan squeezed my shoulder. I need to report in, he said softly. Congratulations, I told him. You earned every bit of this. When he left, my parents stood there, exposed and uncertain. I have to go, I said. Transport's waiting. So soon? My mother asked. Yes. I paused, then added, be proud of Ethan. He deserves it. And I walked away. I didn't look back when my mother started crying. As I crossed the base toward the flight line, my shoes struck pavement in measured rhythm. The uniform felt heavier, not with rank, but with truth. I had grown up invisible. Not unloved. Not abused. Just unseen in the most precise way possible. And for the first time, they had been forced to see me. But recognition, I realized, doesn't heal old wounds. It only exposes them. On the flight back to Hawaii, I sat alone with my thoughts, replaying the moment General Keller saluted. The shock on my parents' faces. The years it had taken for the truth to become undeniable. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt tired. And that's when I understood something that changed everything. Being seen didn't mean being understood. And understanding didn't mean forgiveness. That reckoning was still coming. The flight back to Hawaii was quiet. I sat by the window, watching clouds drift beneath us like something distant and unreachable. I replayed the ceremony in my mind, not the applause or the salute, but my parents' faces. Shock. Confusion. Regret arriving far too late. I should have felt satisfied. Vindicated. For years, I imagined a moment where the truth would be undeniable. Where they'd finally see what I had become. But sitting there at 30,000 feet, all I felt was exhaustion. Recognition doesn't heal old wounds. It just exposes how deep they are. When I landed, my executive officer met me on the tarmac despite my protests. You didn't have to come, I told her. Yes, I did, she replied gently. How are you holding up, ma'am? I'm functional, I said. Which is different from fine. She nodded. She understood the difference. The next morning, I was back in uniform, back in meetings, back in a world that made sense. Briefings. Decisions. Problems with solutions. Sailors who listened and trusted my judgment. By noon, I had almost convinced myself the ceremony had been a strange dream. Then my phone started ringing. My mother called first. I didn't answer. My father called next. I let it go to voicemail. Then Ethan texted. They're not handling this well. I stared at the message for a long moment before replying. Neither am I. 3 days later, a package arrived at my office. Inside was a framed photo from my promotion to Rear Admiral. A picture I had sent them years ago. One they had never displayed. Tucked behind the frame was a handwritten note. We should have celebrated you. We're sorry we didn't. I placed the frame face down on my desk. A week later, my parents showed up at the base. No call. No warning. Just appeared at the visitor center, asking to see me. My executive officer informed me quietly. They're here, ma'am. I closed my eyes. Bring them to conference room B. Give me 10 minutes. When I walked in, They stood immediately, unsure whether to hug me or salute. My mother looked thinner. My father looked older. Guilt does that to people. You shouldn't have come unannounced, I said calmly. We needed to see you, my mother replied. We needed to explain. I remained standing. You have 15 minutes. They talked quickly. Apologies layered over excuses. Confusion dressed up as regret. They said they hadn't understood. That they assumed I would tell them if something mattered. That they thought I didn't need them because I seemed so capable. You didn't think I needed you, I said quietly. You decided I didn't. Silence. When I made lieutenant commander at 31, you asked if that was good, I continued. When I made captain, you changed the subject. When I became an admiral, you asked if that was higher than captain. Those weren't misunderstandings. Those were choices. My father swallowed hard. We see it now. Do you? I asked. Or do you see a rank that embarrassed you in public? My mother started crying. We love you. I know, I said. But love without attention is neglect. Love without curiosity is indifference. I checked my watch. 5 minutes. What do you want from us? My father asked. I want space, I said. Time. And for once, I want you to respect a boundary instead of pushing past it because it makes you uncomfortable. So we just wait, my mother whispered. Yes. You wait. I stood, opened the door, and called for my executive officer. Please escort my parents off base. They didn't argue. That hurt more than if they had. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on my lanai, listening to the ocean, thinking about the years I spent trying to be visible. About the child who worked harder because she thought excellence would earn love. About the woman who learned too late that love given conditionally isn't love at all. At 2 in the morning, Ethan called. I'm struggling, he said. Training is harder than I expected. I don't know who I am if I fail. I listened. I didn't fix. I didn't minimize. You were never loved for who you were, I told him gently. Only for what you represented to them. That wasn't fair to either of us. How did you survive that? He asked. I stopped living for their approval, I said. I found purpose elsewhere. Weeks passed. Then months. My parents stopped calling every day. Then every week. Eventually, they asked if they could try therapy. They told me they were learning about favoritism. About emotional neglect. About the damage they'd done to both of us. I didn't forgive them. Not yet. But I noticed something shift. When they visited again, they called first. When I said no, they accepted it. When I spoke, they listened. Not to defend themselves, not to correct me, but to understand. Healing, I learned, isn't dramatic. It's quiet. It's slow. It's watching people prove, over time, that they're capable of change. A year after the ceremony, I was selected for promotion to Vice Admiral. 3 stars. I didn't tell my parents beforehand. I didn't invite them. That moment was mine. The ceremony was simple. Professional. Clean. When the oath was administered, I felt something settle inside me. Not pride. Not relief. Completion. Later that evening, I called my parents. I was promoted, I told them. Last week. There was silence. Then my father spoke. We would have liked to be there. I know, I said. But this one belonged to me. That's fair, he replied. For the first time, I believed him. Today, I still serve. I still lead. I still make decisions that ripple across oceans. My relationship with my parents is different now. Quieter. Careful. Built on respect instead of expectation. I no longer prove myself. I don't perform for love. And I don't shrink to make others comfortable. I learned that boundaries aren't walls. They're doors. And you decide who gets to walk through them. If this story resonated with you, you're not alone. If you've ever been dismissed by family, overlooked despite your effort, or forced to choose between approval and self-respect, tell me your story in the comments. If you believe boundaries are an act of strength, hit like and subscribe. This channel is for stories about reclaiming your power, even when it costs you comfort. Your worth doesn't need permission. And being seen starts with seeing yourself.